There was just one segment 2, Golden Black Live. Well, there's one of us in the studio, and then of course Coach Lee Rose joins us via phone. And Coach, is it balmy Charlotte, or is it? It's certainly warmer than it is in West Lafayette.
Well, I would have to say it's probably warmer here than it is there, but it's not that warm. We've had a hard rain all morning, and it's cold. It's down in the 40s, so. We've had some cold weather, but it seems to be lifting and heading out.
Yeah, you know, it's been, and you spent at least 2 cold winters, as I recall. Some tough ones back in the late 70s in West Lafayette. We've had a brutal stretch here. It's actually been about like it was. They were talking about this bad of weather as they've had here since the 70s. But Coach, thank you for taking the time to join us. We have Aaron putting some pictures online right now. Of that really a magical season, and obviously the 1978-79 season. Just to set the stage for some of you that would not know how things worked back then, the Boilermakers and Coach Lee Rose was hired, I believe, in about April of 1978, replacing Fred Schaus. Came on the scene. Purdue picked by most in the lower division of the Big Ten for the 1978-79 season. They lost 3 starters from the year before with Wayne Walls and Walter Jordan and Eugene Parker, and Coach Rose had to brought in a whole new system, and really had a phenomenal, magical year and a very different time in college basketball. But Coach, when you walked into that job, and we were showing you a picture with Joe Barry Carroll here, that you knew what you had. You obviously had taken UNC Charlotte to the national finals, semifinal 2 years earlier, and had done very, very well there. And you knew what you had with Joe Barry Carroll and Jerry Seasting. But looking back, when you first assessed things, what did you think you first had to do to get things moving in the right direction, or at least in a direction where you could be as competitive as you ended up being?
Well, number one, I really wasn't that familiar with the talent. Being here at UNCC, our whole year was dedicated to, our program here. So when I was contacted and we talked about it, I did know about Joe Barry. And the thing that in my mind stuck out is that you have a player that is 7'1", he weighs 250 or 60 pounds, and he has great hands. And if he has great hands, then you try to develop him as best you can to be a scorer. And I think he had averaged like 10 points and 8 or 10 rebounds as a sophomore. And so my thought was, if you take him and you build on him, make them score on him on inside, and then he'll kick it back out, then we have a good inside-out game. And my first thing that I did once I had taken the job was to fly to Lexington, Kentucky, where he was playing in an Olympic trial program process. And I met with Joe, and I told him that I had come there for one particular reason, and that's all. And that was to make sure that we understood each other. And I asked him very pointedly, what is it you really want out of basketball? And Joe's a very cerebral man. He backed off and he thought for a couple of minutes, and he said, ultimately, I want to play in the NBA. And I said, well, that's great, because if that's what you want to do, I can guarantee I can help you get there. And so anyway, we developed a great relationship, and I told him it wasn't just on the floor that I felt like it was important. It's in the locker room too, in your course grades too. It's going to school, and it's being a leader. And he lived up to every expectation that I would have, and he ended up being the #1 draft pick and had a great 10-year career. So that's kind of the beginning of the process. Now, when you have Jerry Seasting on the team and you have Brian Walker, you have outstanding guard play. And then we had the good fortune to get a young man by the name of Arnett Hallman out of Chicago. And Arnett was special in his own capacity of playing. He was 6'7" or 6'8". He was a fantastic leaper, jumper. And in terms of our conditioning program, he was a quality runner. He could really fly. And the beautiful part about Arnett was that he was a great defensive stopper. And whenever we would play Indiana, he would guard Isaiah at times. He guarded Magic when we would play Michigan State, and then McHale when we would go against Minnesota. So he was very flexible and durable, and a tremendously fine, world-class athlete. And when you take that kind of a group and build around it, you have a chance of producing a great team. And they came together and played extremely well throughout the year.
And you know what's amazing about that team, and you know the names you just reeled off. Obviously Isaiah, Kevin McHale, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, all guys that you played against in either year one or year two of your tenure in West Lafayette. You know, and obviously in your career in the NBA after that, you know, these are guys you watched play from this point forward. Can you imagine a league with any more talent than the Big Ten had at that point in time? It's pretty hard. I know the Big East at times had some great talent, but this is a league that could stack up with just about anybody.
Well, I agree with that. In fact, one of the things that precipitated me to go into the NBA was I felt like that was the best conference in the United States at that time. And when you mentioned those players, Bird was not in the Big Ten, right, but we did play Bird. And here again, you have your matchup with Arnett. But in terms of overall talent throughout the country, I think that the Big Ten was probably number one during that time.
Yeah, no question. Golden Black Live here with Coach Lee Rose, led the Boilermakers to a Big Ten championship in 1979. We can't believe that's 35 years ago, and of course also to the Final Four in 1980 in his 2 years in West Lafayette. And Coach, we talked about, and I know that you are a watcher of basketball. You may not have seen every Purdue game this year, but there's that old adage of guys, you know, teams that need to reach the Final Four need to have one or two NBA level players. And I suppose you know, certainly in your 1980 team, you had Joe Barry Carroll that played for a long time. You had Keith Edmondson end up being a first-round draft pick. Jerry Seaston, who was a very, very good, maybe a journeyman player, but an excellent NBA player in his own right. Do you buy that line of, you know, it's obviously changed a little bit with what guys can go early to the draft, but do you still buy that theory that you need a couple players at that level in terms of to be able to make a run deep into the tournament?
Oh, absolutely. I don't think you can without it. I mean, you have to have the players. You can't get there without the players. And I'm not all the ones that end up getting into the Final Four are going to go in and instantly carry an NBA team, but they're going to get drafted, and they're going to have a chance to do that. Seasting is a great example of that. Jerry wasn't a big guard, but he was a really solid guard. and he ended up playing with Boston for a number of years. And as you know, he's back coaching in the NBA now. So Jerry, I mean, he was just a player that he didn't commit turnovers. He made shots. He was great to have because in a close, tight ball game, if they foul the wrong guy.
Yeah.
Because he would step up there and hit him. So, you know, I don't. I wish the one that didn't make it, that I really wanted to make it, was Arnett. And Arnett encountered one of those things that happens in the NBA when one position gets overloaded with talent. And you ended up having Bird, McHale, and Arnett competing for him. And then see, Arnett got drafted by Boston, but there's no chance that he's going to make it at Boston. So anyway, he went to Europe and he played, and he had a good career there.
Yeah, he absolutely did, and I wanted to take you back to a couple of great memories, and we've been running this picture of Arnett's shot heard around the world, at least from a Purdue basketball standpoint, the 52-50 win over Michigan State in that 78-79 season, January 13th, I think it was, and we're showing on the screen right now, right over Terry Donnelly. I know you drew it up that way, and yet it's some great stories about the fact that Arnett liked to shoot the ball sometimes a little more than you that you would have liked, but he could never live that shot down. Take us back through that, though, and what you remember about that game. Obviously, it was a game against Magic Johnson and a team that ended up winning the national championship, the Michigan State Spartans, and an unbelievable game of cat and mouse in the last 3 or 4 minutes of that game. But tell me what you remember about Arnett.
They came in, as I recall, they were number one in the country.
That's correct, yeah.
And we had played them down to where it was really a nip and tuck game, back and forth. And we were like 2 down, but had the ball. And we came up the floor, and Magic was talking to Heathcote, I think. Was he the coach at that time?
Yeah, Judd Heathcote, yep.
Yeah, okay. He turns his head to talk to Heathcote, and when he does, about 3 of their players turn and look at Heathcote. Well, Jerry's got the ball, and Jerry sees them turn their head, and he just sprints straight to the basket and hits a layup. Well, this just, it ignited the place. And we were up at that time, 52-50. It was a low-scoring game, as many games are in the Big Ten. But then we play it out, and it's a tie game, but we've got the last possession. And so, yeah, you're absolutely right. You didn't draw up a play for Arnett in this situation. But drew up a play, and we had the ball going to different places, and probably it would have gone to Jerry looking into Arnett. But something happened as the ball got reversed, and it got slowed, and we didn't have much time. So Arnett just takes a dribble, shoots, and I think he banked it in. And we win. So we're after the game, I'm walking into the press conference after Heathcote has talked. Of course, he's funny anyway.
Oh, yeah,
to me. Yeah. I mean, he was a good guy, but funny. And he stopped just at the door as I went past him. He said, "Now, go in there and tell him how you drew that play up for Arnett." And that cracked me up. That was really funny. But that was a great game and a great win for Purdue.
One of the great moments, and yet one of the for Purdue fans a difficult one, but I thought really showed the breadth of your character, but also of just what happens to coaches and great players. And obviously your last game of that season, the amazing story is Purdue wins the Big Ten, does not get invited to the NCAA. Iowa and Michigan State are invited. They actually had 2 teams going that time. But you go to the NIT finals, play Indiana, in a difficult ball game, and have it again. This play you drew up absolutely perfectly, and
Right.
you had the right guy shooting the ball, and Jerry Seasting from 18 feet or so on the left wing. It just didn't go down. But tell us about that story and a little bit about what you. I know you guys shared a special moment after that, but a very difficult thing as a coach to see a guy have his career end against a team. He's a Southern Indiana guy. Where it just didn't work out for him.
Well, if you would go back and chart our practices and see how efficient Jerry was in his shooting, and you go from different positions on the floor, but a lot of times we ran what we called a turnout in our fast break, and the guard would turn out off of a forward and catch the ball and take the jump shot. And Jerry was just so good at doing that. And we play a tough ball game all the way down, and we had I think I had a 1-point lead, and Indiana had the ball. They bring it up the floor, and we trapped them, and Carter bobbled the ball. And yet then he picked it up and just shot it, and it goes in, and we got like 4 seconds left. So we call timeout, and then we make a double screen, one on each side of the half court, and we throw the ball to mid-court, and we catch it, and we call timeout immediately. Actually, the 4 seconds never changed, I don't think.
Yeah.
Because it was, the timer doesn't start till it hits somebody in bounds, and we take it and throw it, catch it, call timeout. Now we've got the ball at mid-court and 4 seconds to get a shot. So we run a turnout play with Jerry coming off of the screen, and it was about a 12-foot shot. He was open, and he missed it. And he's such a competitor. And I went to him immediately and told him, hey, you did the best you could. You don't worry about that. Good things will happen for us. And anyway, Jerry, he's just a wonderful person. And our relationship just grew and grew as he got out of college, matured, played in the NBA. He comes through town now. He calls me with the NBA, and sometimes we can have coffee, sometimes we can't. But that was a tough loss. That was a tough loss for him because he felt like that, he hits that shot 80% of the time in practice, and it just didn't fall.
Well, and next year we'll get to discuss the 35th anniversary of the Final Four team, and you had a different answer for Indiana that year in the game in Lexington. Just a couple more questions. I've already kind of overstayed our welcome, but I appreciate your time. Just talk a little bit about you're still very much involved and known really nationally as one of the great technicians in basketball. And Kim, if you get the chance, go ahead and put up the cover of his book, Winning Basketball Fundamentals. But just staying in a book that you came out last year. That's really, if you want to understand basketball at a very very in-depth level, it's an excellent book. And you have an opportunity to stay close to the game of basketball. You're no longer involved in scouting, but as I understand it, but you're still very passionate about the game. But talk a little bit about that book and what that's meant to be able to do it. And of course, the Purdue guy, Rob Hummel, kind of epitomizes the kind of basketball that you like to play. He would have fit in very well in your teams at Purdue, and he'd fit well on any team, as he found out by getting a contract this week. But talk a little bit about that, please.
Well, the thing about Robbie, I was in the NBA for many, many years, and I was the director of player personnel, and then I was supervisor of their of the coaches from the D League, and in the process of the NBA, I also was in charge of organizing and supervising the NBA college draft camp. I did that probably for, I don't know, 18 or 20 years. And I knew that Robbie had a tough senior year. And he was injured, as you recall, a big part of the time. And yet at the same time, when he was healthy, he was one of the best players in the Big Ten. And I think Human Kinetics did a great service when they put him on the cover. I think he's a player that brought all of the different intangibles that you want, and for whatever reason, injuries at times take certain people out. But I traveled a great deal in that time and saw a number of Purdue games. And I think that, I don't know, writing, that was my second book, and I'm working right now on a third. And I try to convey the essence of what coaching is about and what you're trying to obtain from the players, and at the same time giving them the freedom and flexibility to play their game. So that's kind of the way I try to maintain a focus on what I'm doing, and travel right now becomes a little bit more difficult than it used to be. And so we stay a little bit more closer to home at this time.
Well, Coach, it was great to see you, back in 2011 when you were here for the Mackey rededication and the ovation that you received. People remember what you mean to Purdue basketball. I know Coach Matt Painter thinks very highly of what you're doing and what you've contributed to the game. So we'll look forward to another year, hopefully, of good health, and we'll look forward to talking to you down the road. We want to get Brian Walker on this show. It'd be a fun panel discussion with you, Brian, to kind of hash over the way you both perceive the way things were. Brian, a strong-willed individual that has a great memory to what's gone on, one of the great point guards in Purdue basketball history. Coach, best to you. Thanks again so much, and we'll look forward to talking to you again soon.
One thing, let me just say this. When you're talking and asking me questions about certain players, I don't get a chance to speak to all of them.
Yeah.
But Brian definitely was just an outstanding point guard, and one that had he been a little bit better shooter, I think that he could have made it in the NBA. And also, I want to say this too, that my family and my wife, Eleanor in particular, we love the people up there. And we had 2 wonderful years, and it was a great experience. There's a chance, and I don't know that we can do it, but there's going to be a program up there in February, and maybe we can get by and see you at that time. I'm hoping that we can make it. We'll see.
Yeah, they've got several home games at that time, and I know Indiana will be in town, Michigan State, Michigan, the murderer's row of the Big Ten. So let's hope that happens. I think everybody will be glad to see you when you come back to West Lafayette. Be safe, and we'll look forward to talking again soon.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Bye-bye.
All right, Coach Lee Rose joining us. We'll have Stacy and Kyle, who are already having a very good discussion off to the side here. So we'll look forward to bringing that to the final segment of Gold and Black Live. Stay tuned. We'll take a couple-minute break. We'll see you in a couple minutes on Gold and Black Live.